law is like a teacher, and it does help influence public opinion. And I'm shocked. I would never have believed back when I was, say, 16 years old, that one day you would have people like Kanye West, Pamela Anderson, is it Billie Eilish? I'm a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Help me out. Yeah. Okay. James
Rock,
Hetfield, Chris Rock. Like, this is Terry Crews. I mean, this is beautiful to see. Because these people really do influence culture, and if they stand up and speak out about this, it's terrific. What are we seeing right now that's good in the kind of cultural space of maybe movies or individuals who are speaking out about this?
Yeah, well, exactly as you said, more celebrities are starting to feel comfortable with opening up about their own personal experiences. So I think that, and the harms of pornography, I think that's really significant. Also, just awareness of sex trafficking and sexual abuse has really increased in the last number of years, both through the Me Too movement, through conversations around Jeffrey Epstein. And
Mm-hmm.
I think now with the pornography abuse, that's becoming clear. And more people are starting, there's a bit of an emerging field in the idea of image-based sexual abuse. So that's maybe sexually explicit content that has been shared by a partner or ex-partner, that has been recorded without consent, such as
Yeah.
spy cams or hidden cameras, or filmed sexual assaults as well, and or hacked images, which has impacted a lot of celebrities as well as a lot of individuals. And we're seeing more awareness around that. I predict within the next year to 2 years, that's going to be a really significant part of the current conversation, because we're seeing survivors really speaking out on that. There's actually some legislation that's been introduced called the Protect Act, which calls for robust age and consent verification for platforms that host explicit content. And over 300 survivors of image based sexual abuse have signed that letter just within this last week, have signed a letter recommending that legislation and
In the
calling for
last
it.
week.
Mhm. So this is,
Crikey.
we're on the front end, but I think it's another way that we're seeing, again, survivors often are leading the way and really helping us to pave a path forward and raise awareness.
This is such a breath of fresh air. I think one of the reasons I had to just distance myself from this conversation a few years ago is I was speaking to like 70,000 teenagers a year and college students on this topic, and just being immersed in that it takes a toll. It's a dark place, and it's a sad place. But hearing things like this really does give people hope. How do you? I mean, is it these victories that kind of keep you hopeful, or do you find
Yeah,
yourself getting fatigued over all these horror stories, and how do you deal with that?
definitely. It's very dark. And especially when we're talking with people who are impacted, I obviously there's survivors who are exploited by the pornography industry or have their exploitation uploaded onto pornography websites. But I also think especially of children exposed to this content as victims as well of the pornography industry.
Mm.
And especially people in my generation, millennials who so often were exposed so young and maybe now have compulsive problems with it or have been harmed in relationships by partners who have problems with pornography usage. It's very dark and it's very prevalent, but I think that we are seeing so much progress, and that's really what is keeping me in the fight, because pornography is such a ubiquitous experience in some way or another in my generation and younger generations. It's starting to lose its taboo and people are speaking about it. And when people start speaking about it, they start hearing the harms from their own perspective, from their friends' perspectives. And then some people are learning about the research about the harms of pornography. And then there are these activism campaigns, this legislation progress with corporations as well, which is really encouraging. And I do believe that we are really approaching some cultural tipping points on this topic, even internationally. So internationally, Germany, actually, a high court in Germany just recently allowed legislation to move forward, calling for some pornography platforms to be banned from the country if they don't enact age restrictions, some age gating, keep children off of pornography platforms. It's a very simple idea. And Germany's pursuing that. France is pursuing that. The UK has been pursuing that for years. It's taking a
Yeah.
little time there. But it's an idea that's not going away, that
I think
we
I think
are able
part
to
yeah, sorry to
buying alcohol
interrupt.
online. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I think you're right. It is a very simple idea, and I think that the what do you call it? The porn industry or the porn apologists have for so long convinced us, or have tried to convince us, that if we're opposed to porn, it's because we're just against sex, that we're sexually repressed, that this is a religious issue. But as the data and the studies pile higher, and we realize, no, this is like a public health crisis. That we start to realize that exposing children to pornography is abusing children, and to take that lightly, or to say, I don't know, to try to make an argument for why that's acceptable from a libertarian point of view, seems to me to be just intellectually bankrupt. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can make that argument if you have any exposure to the research on the
Yeah.
harms of pornography, or if you've just talked with people who've been exposed to it from a young age. So it's really encouraging to see international legislators having the courage also to step up and introduce legislation like that, support legislation like that. Um, and and there's so much more. I know that there's legislators in Hungary, in Colombia, in Spain, and other places that are actively searching for the research and looking for legislative solutions. And maybe not all of the solutions need to be legislative. It might depend on the country, the culture, and the context. But certainly, whether it's legislation, corporate responsibility, public awareness around the harms, and which is really significant as well. All of those things really are making progress. So it's a dark subject, but I really do actually have so much hope. I think that we're getting there bit by bit.
Yeah. And it's a dark subject precisely because the human person is so good, like, and I know you know this, and our listeners probably know this, but like, if the human person did not have intrinsic dignity, dignity not based on what he or she does, not a dignity that's bestowed from government, like, then we couldn't talk about the exploitation of the human person. In that no one talks about exploiting paper clips or washing machines, right? Like, the reason pornography is evil is precisely because the body is sacred and demands our reverence. So I'm so glad you're in this fight. Hey, other than supporting NCOSE financially, which, feel free to talk about that, how can we get behind again, for those watching, NCOSE stands for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. What more can we do? How can we join you in this fight?
So you can go to dirtydozenlist.com, and you can take some really easy actions by emailing these corporations, sending out pre-written tweets. We make it so easy. In 5 minutes, you can take 10 actions or more. And they do really make a difference. So that's one way. And another way is talking with people in your life about these issues. So whether you're on our website or others' websites, reading their blogs and then sharing them with friends is always really helpful. And also contacting your state legislators. We have legislation going throughout the country on exploitation issues, from sex trafficking to pornography, such as some legislation for ensuring that filters are turned on for minors on their smartphone devices. That's a very simple thing that legislators can pursue. Or even things like declaring pornography a public health hazard, which is something that 16 states in the US have already done so. And by the way, a committee, so not the full thing, but a committee in the Council of Europe has also called pornography a public health hazard. That's also language that's being pursued internationally. So you can get involved legislatively as well. And if you're passionate about that, just contact us and we'll be happy to set you up with plenty to do.
Yeah, God bless you. NCOSE.com, is that right? Or .org? Or?
EndSexualExploitation.org.